Hey guys, we're on to week 1 of our brand new series, Love is a Battlefield. And the message we're going to talk about today is titled, The Struggle is Real. And I'm sure we can all relate to that in some way, shape, or form. But he bases his message out of Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 through 12. And I'm going to read that real quick. It says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places." And so this whole series is really just about fighting for the things you love, it seems like. And as he goes through these points, I feel like there's a lot of things to talk about with this.
Point one is get angry over the destruction. And he points to the story of Nehemiah, which is when the Israelites are back in Israel after being exiled and they're trying to rebuild, and somebody basically asks them, how's it going? And they said, the wall of Jerusalem has been torn down, the gates have been destroyed by fire. And Nehemiah says, when I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. And so he's talking about this deep emotional reaction to all the suffering this people is going through. Mm-hmm. And, that it just kind of points out how there's really a lot of terribleness in our world that, it hurts and it cuts and it makes sense to weep and mourn about these things. It makes sense to be angry and to recognize that there's a problem. So if we're going to fight for, the things that we believe in, we kind of have to first realize there's something to fight for. There's something not right.
Yeah. And, sometimes in Christian cultures, we talk about anger as kind of a sin or maybe not good. But what do you think is maybe beneficial from this type of anger in this situation?
Yeah, I think anger drives us. Anger compels us to do something. And there's certain things that if you're not angry about it, there's something wrong, when somebody's hurt. And so I think our emotions are never, the emotions themselves aren't wrong. It's what do you do with it? And so if anger drives you to fight for the people you love, then use it for that.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think one of the ways that we fight, or something that we can do through our anger, is pray. And that's kind of what he talks about in the second point, which is get ready for the battle. And one of the ways that we get ready is we pray. And I kind of view prayer as a way that we align ourselves with the will of God. And I think one of the ways that we can prepare to fight for the things we love is just by praying and getting aligned with what his will is so that we can fight in maybe a righteous way,
Yeah, absolutely. In the verse there, it's the same one as earlier, but just a broader passage. But he names all these things: truth, righteousness, peace, faith, salvation, that are things that we implement in our lives. And I think prayer is one of the ways that we do that. Truth is not just telling ourselves truth, but it's like focusing, meditating on truth, praying, being mindful of all of these things. And I think you're definitely right that that's exactly how we prepare, is to pray, and even to pray mindfully, if that makes sense, pray in a way that is seeking God's will and seeking these things in our lives.
Yeah, it gets us focused. It's, when there's a lot going on in life, and especially when we're trying to take care of the things we love, we have to remain focused on the things that are important to us,
Yeah, and that leads right into the third point, get focused on the true enemy. The verse is, stay alert, watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. And I think it's just a great reminder that sometimes we get mad at people and we see them as the enemy. But in most cases, the people are not the real enemy. There's a deeper enemy than that person who upset us. There's something else going on. And it's important to recognize that that really, our real enemy is Satan and everything that Satan is trying to do in this world. And we're trying to fight that. We're really not trying to fight that person who hurt our feelings or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's funny, as I was reading this point, I thought about how in my relationship with Michaela, my wife, we often have moments where we have to remind ourselves hey, I'm not the enemy, or, you're not the enemy in this situation. We're trying to reach a common goal, and we need to work together. Remember who the actual enemy is that's trying to stop us from what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. We do that in all of our arguments. We get into our head, I think, that this person's out to get me, and they're usually really not. And it's usually just we've got some kind of misunderstanding or whatever.
Yep.
I think this happens, politically, and especially in an election year, whatever. There's a lot of people trying to get you to hate people that think differently from you, and we really have to stay focused on that person who's the other political party, they're not my enemy. They just think differently from me. And we need to like refocus on what the real enemy is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that final point is really encouraging to me. It says, get excited for the victory. And this is one of my favorite verses in Romans chapter 8, verse 37 to 38. And it talks about how nothing can separate us from God's love. And to quickly read an excerpt from it, I'm convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love, neither death nor life, angels nor demons, fears for today, nor our worries about tomorrow, not even the powers of hell can separate us from God's love. That is such a powerful line, I feel like, and a good reminder that through this battle, there is victory and a promised victory. And so we don't have to go into these battles for things that we love hopeless. You know, there's a hope that there's victory on the other side.
Yeah. And it helps me to be maybe a little bit less angry. And, you know, we talked about how anger is not bad in itself, but I think uncontrolled anger is bad. And so it helps me to be less fearful if I know that in the end there's a victory. If I know that no matter how somebody might hurt me or how bad things get, I can't be separated from the love of God, then I can have a sort of confidence that comes along with whatever anger or sadness or whatever else I might be feeling. There's still a sense of safety in that I can't lose God's love. And so bad things can happen and they can be really, really bad, but not that bad.
Yeah. And it takes the pressure off of me to like have to make something happen. Now I just get to play my role in God's story and God's victory. I don't have to be the one in control and try to make something good happen. Like God's going to worry about that. I just have to play my role in that story. And so I think that's a really comforting and encouraging reminder through these struggles of us fighting for what we love.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good...
We did not talk about how to end this.
No, we did not.
But we are done.
We are done.
You guys have a good discussion amongst yourselves.